Good afternoon, Chris, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Carlo.
Chris, tonight I have three questions to ask of you, and I look forward to listening to you share your knowledge and expertise with us.
Okay.
So, Chris, our first question: how does identity and heritage play a role in shaping responses to conflict and challenging times?
Yeah. You know, I don't even know if it's so much of around identity, but depending on, the collective history, legacy, story of connection to conflict, um, how one responds could be impacted. So, say, for instance, um, someone who's had a shared experience of war, if there's a conflict um, around war, that could trigger a response in somebody who's shared that same living experience. And just seeing, hearing, um, being in spaces where those situations are being experienced, someone will have you know, even though they might have been in that situation years ago, something in present time could trigger something in from the past. And so I do feel that for folks who have a shared living experience, identity, or life circumstances, life experience, something in present time could definitely impact how they respond. And I would say what really impacts how someone responds is what did they learn around about coping back then when they had that original experience, and whatever strategies that helped them to move through that time, those strategies can be brought forward to help them respond in this present time. I will also say that for some folks, depending on what supported them way back when, they might not be applicable for this current time. And so I don't want to just say, well, if somebody been through this experience and these responses were really supportive in helping them to cope, in helping them to move through, navigate, um, heal, recover, bounce back from. I also want to say that in present time, sometimes more is called for. And so everybody's reality, and I don't want to lump people into a group, we're all different and unique in how we respond to conflict or situations that are triggering and traumatic.
Thank you, Chris, for that. Chris, I have a second question to ask of you. What traditions or practices provide a sense of resilience and connection during these challenging times to support wellness?
I think having a space where people can hold each other. And this is why, even when we're dealing with stuff that is not as big as what we're witnessing and experiencing now, but people come together. When there's a loss in a family, a single loss, people gather, they come together, they sit with, they hold space, they mourn together, they grieve together, they cry together, they remember together, they share stories together. And so for me, what is really, really important is having spaces, collective communal spaces where people can come together, where people can share, where people can heal, where people can be supported, where people's feelings could be validated and acknowledged, because acknowledgement is key in these times. It's like, I see you, I hear you. I might not be able to say that, I can help you, but just acknowledgement is key. And so I think what helps is having spaces where we can come together. So healing circles, you know, um, opening up spaces at the dinner table for conversations, in workplaces, inviting people to check in about what they're witnessing and how they're being impacted by that. So creating spaces for people to name what is real and what is hard helps with the unburdening and helps with, um, shifting some of the mental and emotional weight that many of us are carrying in these times.
Thank you, Chris. One last question, if you don't mind. Um, in what ways can we incorporate identity into coping strategies to help families navigate the impact of the conflict more effectively, especially when speaking with their children?
Well, I mean, people know what supports them. So I would say instead of a cookie cutter, having a cookie cutter response for this group and that group and this group, you really need, because like I said, we're all different and unique. So we might share a same experience around identity, but I might be unique from somebody else. I am unique from someone else in my family or someone else in my community. And so we have to be mindful of seeking to understand what would support you, what would support your child, and asking folks, right? Creating space for folks to say, you know what, this is what we need. This is what would support me. This is what I'm noticing with my children. And I don't know how to have a conversation with them about, this stuff. And then maybe if the parent came and says, I don't know how to have the conversation, then you give them a little 1 2 3. you know Start with acknowledgement, you know start with checking in, because there might be some folks who feel, well, I'm not Palestinian, I'm not Israeli, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Jewish, it doesn't affect me. But we are human, and we all will feel. Witnessing, hearing the stories will vicariously traumatize all of us, just from seeing and hearing what's out there in mainstream media, what's out there in social media. So we will all be impacted. So I think the key piece in terms of um, coping skills and coping strategies is, one, seeking to understand what would work for that family in that particular identity community, because it cannot be a blanket one size fit all response.
Thank you so much, Chris, for giving us of your time this afternoon. Greatly appreciated. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos.